Welcome back to another episode, everybody. And I do want to say, the people that watched the last one, it was very, very good to hear some of the positive messages and stuff you guys got. It was very it did hit home to a lot of people. And I don't want to say too much of what people said, but it's great. It was good that we had somebody talking about that sort of issue and it was able to help some people. But today's guest, we have a man that I was curious to get on because, again, I'm very curious to speak to people that are in the industry, as in the industry I'm either in or want to be in or I'm involved in something. Is Adam Phillips? How are you, mate?
Very well, thanks, Kyle. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right, thank you. Yeah, again, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you coming on and giving us, an hour of your time. But I'm curious too. A lot of people when they want to get involved in whether it be media, telly presenting, anything like that, they kind of always that's definitely what I wanted to do, and I definitely want to be there. Was that where you always wanted to be? Because I know on your resume you were always kind of involved in media, but is that always where you wanted to be, or was there something else that kind of took your fancy?
Firstly, thanks for having me on. I always sort of saw this trajectory for me, just through kind of what I was interested in as a kid. I don't know, maybe I always thought it was natural for, kids to love TV and love films, but I don't think that is true. I don't think, all do, maybe to the same extent, but I sort of continued that sort of love for TV and film sort of, as I grew up. And I was lucky enough to go to a school where, they offered various, it was film I did at A level. And I just jumped at the opportunity to do it. So and then that just kind of, it was just one step after another. I never looked too far ahead. I sort of went from there, and then I had the opportunity to do film and television at university. And I think when I was very, very young, my first ever dream was to be a writer. And then I realized I was just terrible at writing. I was just awful. The thing that will probably come across in this episode is I just ramble a lot, and that comes across in my writing. So I sort of, but I know I didn't it wasn't so much of a dream that it kind of I held on to it and sort of and overcame it. I sort of just put that aside, and then just really fell into what I loved doing in my spare time, which was kind of watching TV and films, and kind of absorbing them and delving further into it.
Yeah, is there you've done a lot of writing. Obviously we'll get to stuff like that, but have you always been, because you did writing, does that mean you always wanted to be, I know writers are in front of the scene, but behind the scene versus being an actor, or even being involved in behind the scenes but in front of the scenes? If that, people that are in movies will get what I mean, but being kind of being not on screen but on screen, and that was always you were I'd rather do writing at all.
I think when I went into when I started my studies and started getting experience, I was very open to, I didn't have too much of an idea of what I was going into. I think most people, start off in the creative industries as running, as I did as well. And so I sort of, after I got my journalism qualification, I saw the potential of possibly doing reporting and presenting, which is something that I dabble in now, and it's something that I'm sort of trying to make a parallel path to me as well, because I'm still sort of, it's weird, you always feel at my age anyway, I feel like I'm still very much finding my feet, even though I have, I look back at the time of when I did graduate and get my first role, and it has been a number of years, while it only feels last year or whatever. So it's it's strange how when you first go in, you don't. Well, for me anyway, I definitely didn't go in with any preconceived notion as to what I wanted to be, like a certain role or anything. And I've known people who have, and some have ended up doing that, and some have kind of migrated elsewhere. But no, I very much went in with an open mind and sort of a passion for the television industry, and sort of then just took opportunities wherever they arose, and then I found myself wherever there's opportunities were. For example, I think I started very early on in radio, because that was something that I did at university, and it was something at the time, that was actually probably the most likely thing I thought I was going to end up doing. And then, for whatever reason, opportunities sort of didn't arise in that area. And I just kind of got dragged this way and that, and sort of ended up deviating away from that.
Yeah, you went to, you're also a volunteer presenter at Future Radio Norwich. But I'm curious, was that at the same time you were at uni, or was that kind of like two different times?
Yeah, I think it was my middle. I think it was towards the end of my second year, and then I'd sort of plucked up the courage to do it in third year. So I think I'd sort of got to know them through then, and then I did it in my final year, some work with them, and then when I moved back, when I finished university, I left them and the radio station.
Yeah, I was actually having a conversation today in Fife College about that to somebody that we were talking about, and it would be interesting to get your point of view in it, that if you're at uni and college and stuff, it does help to spend your spare time as in volunteering or on your own creative project or YouTube channel, podcast, whatever it be. Would you say that actually makes it looks better for employers, as in your experience? What's your opinion on that one?
I think we're definitely taught that it does. It does look better. And I, as you sort of highlighted, I did do that. I'm trying to think if I did anything else. I did like an internship at Jack FM as well. Well, not an internship as such. It was like a kind of volunteering again. I think it just shows a bit of intuition and proactivity because they're expecting sort of, I guess, like a base level interest, or and then it's sort of like, what else can you offer? Because you suddenly realize a few years down the line of just how competitive it is, like how many people are actually going for these sort of roles. And so I think it's just it's a way of making it easier for them, of having something, I guess, tangible that someone can, an employer can look at, pick out, and it shows, you've got the whether or not it's actually what you or they would deem as, any good. I don't know if that's actually the point. I think it's more of something that, you've put your mind to it, and you've maybe, whether it's you've created something or you've gone away to another place, it's just shown that sort of a bit of imagination, because it's not exactly it's not the easiest thing in the world to just start a degree and finish it, or whatever the course is you're doing, but it's having something extra on the side is that much harder, because it does take time, and it does take effort and brain power to see it through, let alone start it. So I think it does help. Yeah.
Big time. Yeah. Now I'm curious because, presenting and producing and films and that, and then you were a soccer coach. or football coach,
Yeah.
depending on where we're from. Depending on where you're from, you listen to us.
Yeah, right. Let's say
Where
football
where
for
did that? How did that transition happen? Like, that's a complete.
now. So that was something I did during my summers while I was at university. I sort of played football ever since the age of since the age of 5 or 6, I guess. And then I had a couple of summers, and I never did a gap year. I never did traveling before university, and I didn't plan on doing it afterwards. So I wanted, an extra experience, in my downtime.
Mm.
And my eldest sister had done one years ago, and I was lucky. I actually got offered the radio presenting, I think, job to begin with at the camp, and I said, and that would have been great as well, but I kind of didn't want to continue that. I was already doing it at university, and I wanted to have a summer where I focused on something else, and it's to do with my passions as well, and where I've ended up. Not only have I ended up in TV, but I've ended up in in sports television, which is sort of paired two of my interests. So I was lucky enough to land the soccer coach.
Yeah. As soon as I seen that, it was like, I was like, maybe that was like a strategic move. Like, maybe he was thinking. I thought, to be when I did think it was kind of radio. I was like, maybe that was quite smooth to use. Go to America, get the experience and the feel of like a different culture, a different feel on radio. I mean, I see why you've done it in sports. It makes sense. But I was curious about that. But then
it was never something I planned on, pursuing full time. It was very much sort of a way to spend a summer, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It was such a great experience. But what was I going to say? I know, it was just that. That's it.
We all have moments like that. Now, then you did a production intern at Heart. Is that iHeart Bristol or just Heart Bristol? Am I right in saying that?
Hearts Radio.
Heart
Yeah.
How come? I don't really know how internships work, to be honest with you. But how come it was 4 months, or was that is that like a normal internship, or is that just?
That was no, that was it was weird. It was because I needed knee surgery, and so I worked from an injury from the soccer camp, actually, which is hilarious as I was coaching. So I came back, and I was doing some work for Hearts, volunteering for them while I was able-bodied, but I sort of needed surgery. So then when I had it, I had to stop for a few weeks.
Well, how I think people would maybe kick me if I didn't ask you this. How did you get your knee injury? Like, what happened?
It was the first day that we arrived, and every Sunday we'd arrived on like the Saturday evening, and every Sunday they had like counsellors versus counsellors match. And we weren't like jet lagged, it's not that long a flight, but we were like probably pretty tired, and we got up at 8 a.m. 9 a.m. the next day, and I just went straight over, and like non-contact. I don't know what happened, but just felt something good, and I've never had any injuries before, but I just popped my knee, and that was it. But I sort of continued coaching that summer, and luckily I had insurance. It would have been a nightmare if I didn't, but and I saw I got a brace from like the local hospital, and sort of just coach through it, because it wasn't like after the initial impact, it wasn't something that like remained painful at all. It's just something that sort of you probably need looking at some point or another.
Yeah. I feel you. So then, you were at, which is awesome, which is somewhere that I admire. You were at Red Bull Media House. What kind of, obviously I know that's an offset of Red Bull, but why didn't you go back to Hart, Bristol? Was that just like, or was it you were like, because obviously Red Bull, you were like, I kind of want to move on to this. Was it the whole trying something new? You were like, I want to move to positions.
So I think, if I'm right in thinking, after I had my surgery, had some downtime while I was recovering at home, and then that was when I went off and got my journalism, my NCTJ, and I was kind of, that was, I think a lot of people have this after they finish university. They have a period of their life where you're, unless you go straight into a role, straight off the bat, at some points people have a moment where they're like, right, what am I going to do? What's next? And it didn't happen for me initially after university, because I had soccer coaching, and then I had heart, and then I had surgery, and then when I was recovering, I was like, okay, like, what am I going to do? So I went off and got the journalism qualification, which is almost like a way of just delaying the decision and of like, the moment of finding a job. But yeah, and as I was sort of coming to the end of that course, I can't remember how I found it. I just found an application or online and put myself into it, and it was yeah. And I think I must have already started to think that radio I wasn't so devoted to radio to really to commit to it. I a lot of the skills are transferable, and I don't know if I'd had any experience in TV at that point, but I hadn't actually. And it was an internship at Red Bull, and I applied for it, and like 1 or 2 interviews later, I got it, and I was like, oh my God, okay, I'm moving to Austria in like, I think it was like 2 or 3, maybe 3-4 weeks time. And I was just like, wow. So I think I finished my course, and then like the weekend or the week after, I had to move out. Obviously we were sort of still in the EU, so I could sort of just go there and not worry about anything like visas or anything. So I think cool.
I didn't actually see it was in Austria. That's awesome. So
yeah.
Austria, okay, I'm curious, why did you come back from that job? Was it just was it just a set amount of time, or did something happen, or did you hurt your knee again?
Yeah, no, I didn't know. I was all good out there actually. No, and I had this conversation with someone recently actually. It was a really interesting time. So I finished my 6-month internship, out there, and I had this kind of moment where they offered me time to stay there, and I can't remember. It was almost an extension of the internship, but they were quite positive about all the work I'd done there, and this and there was a conversation ongoing. But I just I was 22 at the time, and I had a real burning desire to come back to the UK and kick on from there and use that experience to just like jump on, and like really, get another, because it felt kind of surprisingly easy getting that. I don't think I'd been through loads of job applications. I must have been through a few before I got the Red Bull one, but it felt yeah, surprisingly easy to get that role. I sort of didn't know what was awaiting me after that. So I was like, I'm going to come back to the UK. I'm just going to get another role. And I remember my boss being like, are you sure, like, have you got anything lined up? And I was like, no, but, I'll just get another one. And I remember saying this at the time, and it sounded really wise. And I don't know whether I still don't know whether it is or isn't. I said, I'm prepared, I have to follow my gut, and I'm prepared for this to be the wrong decision, and to realize that at a later moment and accept that. But I don't think I could ever, not follow my gut instinct and not do what it's telling me, which was to leave. So, I said, I'm very willing to accept that this would be the wrong decision. Let's see if it is. And it was. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. It was just really difficult. It was, and I didn't know how difficult it would be. So I left, came back to the UK, and I think I'd probably been like applying for jobs as I was leaving. And as I came back, I was still in that process, and I got home, and it was just like starting from scratch, And I think people do say it is easier to land a job if you're already in one. And yeah, it was really, really tough. And I remember just like being at my parents, just sending out application after application and not hearing anything. And I really had to take 2 steps back to go 1 forward. And that was sort of to get into live. I think that was another sort of facet of that decision making, I wanted to move more into live TV, which wasn't what I was doing at Red Bull. It was more magazine style. So and like non-live, which was great, and I loved it. And looking back, it was an amazing role. And just the experience of living abroad was at such a young age was great. So yeah, it was really difficult. But I am glad I did it. And I said about that, not knowing whether that was like a wise thing at the moment. It felt very much so. But like, I think it was actually right that looking back, I am glad I left because it was sort of a burning desire within me to, push on. I'd learned a lot, but I felt like I wanted to explore other areas. So yeah, I'm glad I sort of followed my heart.
Yeah, they always say like most people make the wrong decisions at the right time, as it's a very like confusing saying, right. But like it does make sense. It's very, what's it, an old wives' tale. I think that's what you call it. I think that's what you call those types of ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you went into freelance and video journalism. I'm curious though, going into freelance, there's a lot of people that are in media that I speak to versus a lot of people that are like at college, university or something, whether that be beside me or beside people I know, and that they're obviously scared to go into freelance. So I'm curious as well, one, what was the reason you went into freelance? And 2, how did it feel taking that step into freelance?
It was very brief. It was a local TV station in Bristol, and I think they had very few staff. I'm sure that, I think they did have people staff, but the majority of them were freelancers, and it was a really great way for people to come in and gain experience. And yeah, it was like very, I don't think I ever planned on remaining freelance for very long. It was sort of to give me experience, at the time, and to sort of fill my time with something while I was really struggling to get a role, to land something.
Yeah, and then you went to the British Forces broadcasting. Yeah. What was that like?
Yes. Yeah, again that was yeah, because I was thinking actually when you said freelance, it was just the Bristol one, but it was that as well. And that was just before I sort of, I think, got the job at Chelsea. That was really good actually. That was because I had no idea what it was like. That was through a contact I'd made just before I'd left Red Bull, someone back in the UK, and he and I said about, you know, that I was like coming back and I wanted to get some experience, and he put me in touch with some people there, and then they said, you know, they needed a hand with some research. So I think I like Airbnb'd it for a couple of weeks maybe, and like sort of remained down there while I was just getting a bit of experience. Yeah, so I did like a little stint there, but yeah, it was good. It was like, it felt like, looking back actually, and I haven't like spent too much time thinking about it because I moved on quite quickly, but it was good. It was very similar to my time at Chelsea when I got there, and it was a good sort of like first experience of working in well, Chelsea wasn't like a newsroom or anything. It was, you know, it felt like a newsroom, and it felt like a sort of a busy live TV environment with a lot of things ongoing. So yeah, it was a really, and I was in like quite a difficult space at the time because I was like just like sending out like reams and reams of applications, not getting anything. So it was really good to find something where you know, you can apply yourself and just get stuck in, and you know, it was a lot of work I had to do at that point, and they were really happy with the work that I did. I mean, I hope they were. I've never gone back, so maybe they were. But no, it was a great experience there, actually.
Yeah. You now you said Chelsea. Is that before you worked at Input Media, or is that after you worked at Input Media?
So it was the same time. So I was at Input Media, and Input Media's client is Chelsea TV. So
Okay.
yeah, so I was employed by Input Media, but I worked my whole time at Chelsea TV. Some people sort of did like splits at Input and at Chelsea. But yeah, I spent my whole time at Chelsea.
Wow, what was that like? Was that
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah.
It was cool. It was while I was sorry, I was going to say it was I got the call while I was working in Bristol, and I remember, yeah, like again, like similar to the Red Bull, I remember having they were like, when can you start? Like in a couple of weeks, and I was like, okay, so sort of just ditched all my plans and then just moved to London, and it was good. It was again, it was like going into like a live space, which I really wanted to do. And I started off running there, which was difficult because I'd already sort of got some experience, but I sort of knew I wasn't sending off all these applications, but I was going in at like a step higher, or I was actually applying at like steps higher, and I just wasn't getting anything. So I was like, at some point, I'm just going to need to get my foot in the door and, you know, show them what I can do. And that was where I accepted that running role at Chelsea. So I sort of, you know, had to like bide my time and work hard there, which I did. And you know, before long, I think it was like just under a season, maybe. Like I sort of my time works in like on the football calendar rather than years. I sort of go by seasons, but by the end of the first season I was there, I got made an editorial assistant at Chelsea, which was great. And that was like my first, like, no, not my first role, because like, you know, I'd done a lot before that, but it was the role where I felt like I could really start contributing with like a lot of the skills that, you know, because by that point you think you're still like sort of embarking like early on, at that point, I did have like quite a lot of experience under my belt at that point.
Yeah, you did.
And so you've already, sponged up a lot of, experience and time on the ground in other places. So I had like a good solid understanding of places, and even my time running there, I'd sort of been in the live gallery and really got to know a lot of things I didn't even know existed before. So yeah, that editorial assistant role was brilliant, and it made me, I felt like a really sort of key member of a team for the first time. How I felt anyway. Maybe I was before, but I felt like I was suddenly in a role where people sort of depended on me, and I could see like the impact I was having, which is a good feeling.
Yeah, definitely. What was there? Because you left that, and I'm curious though, what was the reason why you left that? Because that seems to be, well, and just from what you were saying, that seems to be like the place you wanted to be, like you wanted to be in that type of environment. What was was there like a big reason you? I know what jobs you've done. I've got them here, but I'm curious. Apart from maybe you had that one of these jobs lined up, was there another reason you left that type of environment? Because that's kind of what you were working up to.
I think I just got to a point where I just wanted a new challenge, and I I wanted to experience some different shows and to test myself in an environment where I would be working on different format and live games more often, with bigger teams, and the when I moved to Premier League Productions, which is sort of where we're going next with this, is it was a role that was simply, it was an editorial assistant role, as it was at Chelsea, but it was vastly different. Whereas I were at Chelsea was working across like the digital space a lot more. I moved much more to sort of the linear style terrestrial TV, and that's something I've had an interest in sort of growing up in the 90s, I guess, and I wanted to sort of get some of those experiences under my belt before too long, because I'd already started to get the digital side going at Chelsea, and so at Premier League Productions, I had a chance to work in a live gallery, operating various bits of graphics and machines which operated like the screens inside a live studio, working across, how many shows did I work across then, like 5 or 6 maybe. So it suddenly expanded my the remit of shows that I was across. And it was just a new challenge, and I was really sad to say goodbye to Chelsea, but it was I think for many people there comes a point where new opportunities arise, and new challenges present themselves, and sometimes they're at the right time and sometimes they're not, when you still got a lot more to learn, and I did have a lot more to learn, but at the same time that you can learn things whether you stay or whether you go, and I just sort of made that decision to move on.
Yeah. Now you were at you are at Premier League Productions. Well, like I'm not sure the way it works, because it's you're at IMG Studios with Premier League Productions.
Yeah, again,
how does it's always that
sort
like
of similar to like the input media thing?
Yeah. Whereabouts did you work? Like where was it, in London? Was it still based in? Was this all still based in London, or did you have to move out of London? Because you seem, you as something that you definitely do like traveling. I could tell you do, because
Yeah.
you moved around a bit. But was it still in London that you did the Premier League? So you kind of went from Chelsea to stayed in there. Is that where
Yeah,
you
it's
currently are?
just a little bit outside London. So I didn't move house or anything. I sort of stayed my own base, but yeah, it's just on the outskirts of London. And yeah, it's not like a huge difference to commute. It's still sort of like West London.
Yeah. So now you're at Premier League Productions. You've done a lot of different roles. So we'll start with so you were an editorial. That's a big word. I got the word right. Editorial assistant. What?
Yeah.
But actually, before we jump to that, I just remembered something you said. Would you mind explaining to everybody what a runner is? Because somebody asked me this the other day on Twitter or something. They were like, by the way, the guy was going about running. What is that? And to be honest with you, I vaguely gave them an answer, but I don't know if it's right. So would you mind clearing that up, exactly what you have to do?
I mean, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get it right either. It is. I don't know where the term comes from. Someone, or a well-known search engine will be able to clear it up for us almost immediately. But it will just. I mean, it is essentially in the place. It's the. I'm just delaying giving an explanation here. I'm trying to get the words out. It is that person who provides, assistance across all departments and all levels. So when I was a runner at Chelsea, I would get the studio ready. I would collect tapes for people who need them in edit suites to ingest. I would, but then, and it's also a chance while you are assisting. It's one of, and again, I was speaking to someone yesterday about this actually. It's one of those roles where you have the largest, ability to touch all departments. You are across almost every single department in a form of assistance, and so it's that entry level role. And what it does is it allows people to see all these different roles which you don't know exist. You're not even aware these jobs are needed or people do them. You don't know, you just think of if it's specifically talking about the TV or film, you just think there's a producer and a director and an actor and a camera operator and a sound operator, and that's it. But in reality, there's dozens, hundreds really. And so when you're a runner, you can see all these different departments working together and collaborating, and you're like, oh, okay, that looks okay, or that looks terrible, I don't want to do that. And it sort of, and it puts the pieces of the jigsaw together, and before these pieces of the jigsaw have just been missing. You don't know what is supposed to go in there, but suddenly it all starts to make sense. And I think it is an important role to do. Not everyone does it just through different routes that people go down, but when I'm really glad I did it, and I'm not just saying that. It really allowed me to have like a sort of a 360 degree understanding of the way my industry works from top to bottom, just through observing and like seeing people doing various stuff, and you sitting with people, chatting to people, learning from them. So
yeah,
that's what a runner is.
I mean, I said to somebody, I can't remember what Buddy the Elf, I said that when thank God it wasn't online, because I would have looked like, what are you talking about? But the movie, do you know the movie what's it called? With Will Ferrell in it. Is it Buddy? Is it the Elf? Friend?
Elf.
Elf, that's the one, yeah. I said to that, I said it's pretty
And
much like that, how he's running around the mailroom with the cart. That's roughly how I described it. So I mean, it's not exactly right, but I wasn't too far off. I wasn't like miles away. But
well, it was more succinct than my explanation.
well, you gave a very detailed explanation. I just thought I had to quickly
Whether it was
tell where I
right or
was
not,
and get
though.
back to what I was doing. But so then you moved. I'm guessing because you had like such a wide different experience, you kind of knew what section you wanted to go in. So you moved section now, or well, this is roughly what I've got, to a broadcast journalist. So you kind of moved up a little bit. Is that where you were like you seen like your next stepping stone, or was that a kind of you seen it in the run and was like, oh, I actually kind of like the look of this job, I'm going to go and do it?
Yeah, it was sort of a interdepartmental shift up, if that makes any sense. That actually might not be correct. It was basically, instead of going kind of moving roles, slightly up and getting a promotion, it was sort of one up but to the side. Just because I was then working on like a completely different show. I was working on what was formerly news within PLP, and yeah, I was sort of no longer working a larger body of shows. I was now working across one as a broadcast journalist. Yeah, so it was sort of, and it was I felt a way to sort of bring some of my expertise from my journalism qualification into this, where I was going to be more, focusing on like breaking stories and building packages, sort of not news packages as such, but sort of like entertainment news packages. So it was again, it was really a really brilliant role while I did it, before I moved departments again.
Yeah, you something I've with getting with researching about yourself, and that it seems to be when you went freelance, you then managed to get a job pretty much what you were doing freelance. So like freelance seems like quite a good idea. Would you say that roughly? I'm quite right in saying that, because you then were an assistant producer for a month, but then you were an assistant producer back with IMG. Is that roughly what you would say how it worked?
I guess, yeah. I mean, having not done a shed load of freelance, I won't be the most qualified person to kind of talk about this, but I guess one of the benefits of freelancing is it enables companies to take a bit of a punt on you. And so, you can go to whoever, and it's low risk for you. Sorry, it's low risk for them to have you in, doing whatever. And if they like you, they keep you, and they keep hiring you. And the benefit, there are many benefits and some disadvantages to it as well. But one of the benefits to freelancing for the person, the individual, is it gets you out there and it gets you that experience, which then you can then go to places and say, it's it's much less of a commitment for a company, rather than hiring someone full time, or for a year contract or whatever, than getting them in for a day or for a week of freelance. So yeah, I think it probably is a good way to get people. I don't think it should be used by an individual for exclusively that purpose, because it might not really work out that way. But I think the wider purpose of it, if you are in that stage of your career to get experience, it's great. If you have the kind of means to support yourself, you can work 5 different companies in in 5 different days, you
Mhm.
know, so it gives you a whole load of experience.
Yeah, it'll teach you how to speak to, because obviously you obviously speak to everyone in a polite manner, but there'll be ways, maybe ways and means you can speak to some companies different than other ones, because obviously the type of stuff they want and what they do and all this sort of stuff. But how did you manage to like stay so driven in an environment where not everybody's trying to do the same thing, but everybody's trying to well, yeah, actually, yeah, everybody's trying to do the same thing. For example, you knew you were sending out application and application and application. So how did you manage? You didn't be like, oh, you know what, I'm going to work down at I don't actually know where you stay, but say you had a Tesco down the road. I'm going to go and work for my local Tesco because it's easy to get a job, easier to get a job there and all this sort of stuff. What were you like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go and continue, keep driving and trying to get the positions and to land up where you are today?
I don't know. I guess it was just never really. I mean, I was lucky, right? You know, I was very lucky to be able to live with my parents, you know, rent free at that time, which many people aren't. So, first and foremost, I had the means to take all the time in the world, really, until I got something which I could then until the right opportunity arose. So that's, practically speaking, key. In terms of keeping myself driven for it, you know, I'm the youngest of 5 siblings, so I've always been pretty stubborn and and driven in that way, in that respect. So I don't know, really. It's hard. It's hard to sort of give an answer to that now that it has worked out. Well, I did get an opportunity in the end. But I think it just sort of goes to show, you know, with the Red Bull one, for example, I think I said earlier that was, you know, I found that surprisingly easy. And then after I left, it was at the other end of the spectrum. You know, it was incredibly difficult. So it just shows how random the process can be. You know, I've had other opportunities, you know, where it lands in the middle as well, where it's kind of not super easy. It wasn't my 100th application for a role like that. So yeah, I think I just, the way I stayed driven while I had the means to do so was, you know, and I probably had times where I went a few weeks without sending anything because I just got fed up with it. But I guess I didn't really ever see another opportunity, another career that was like screaming out for me at that time. And I still don't really see, you know, if today I was to, you know, have to look elsewhere for a job, I don't know where I would begin, because it's sort of always been that's always been, you know, the one for me, and where I want to find myself throughout the rest of my career. So
yeah.
And I feel lucky again in that respect, because, you know, some people and I know people like this, you know, don't know what they want to do, and it's hugely frustrating problem to have. And just through chance, really, I kind of never had that issue. You know, I always was lucky enough to have an idea of kind of where I wanted to go.
Yeah, something that I guess you kind of have, in a way, you kind of do have to know what you want to do, but you kind of you know, it does say a lot the fact that you like did stay driven enough to continue doing that, because we are in like a world now where people like they kind of just like, oh, you know, I can't get this, I'm just going to give up. But you know, you didn't give up, so props on you, to be honest. But
Thanks.
did you ever get, well, I can't imagine you did. Well, maybe, you know, No, I can't imagine you did, but like, because not a lot of people. It seems like negativity is a very like selective one. It's really based on like the person as such, or maybe like situations and what you're doing and stuff like that. But did you ever like receive any negativity? Not like exactly from who, obviously, but did you ever receive any negativity? And if you did, how did you deal with that to stay driven, to keep going?
In in my application processes, do you mean? Or
Yeah. Sorry, yeah, sorry. In your app, because obviously getting not hearing back and not getting thing. Obviously, everybody knows that companies receive probably like I don't know, maybe 1,000
yeah,
applications or something like that.
yeah.
How did you deal with not hearing back? That's bound to be like, damn, I didn't get that one. I was really looking forward to that and
I mean,
speaking.
yeah, like not hearing back itself is like, man, like they don't want me, like so that, yeah, that's like really hard to deal with. You kind of just have to assume like, oh, I just went to they just missed it.
Yeah,
And I mean, you just can't dwell too much on it because you have no idea like the circumstances that have happened, whether I don't know, they received like hundreds of applications or um so you just, yeah, there's just not a lot of point dwelling on it, I don't think. It's just trying to change your approach and trying to adapt to the new situations. But yeah, like I I went to there was a time when I went up to the natural history unit in Bristol, and I wanted to have a look at like pursuing a career in wildlife programming.
Mhm.
And I remember, and that was like sort of not a fork in the road moment where like I had because I never really, the opportunity never presented itself, but I'd been on shoots where they were kind of filming stuff like that, and I was like, oh, maybe this could be something I could pursue. And I, I basically got told that if you didn't have like a background in zoology or whatever in that field, it was going to be incredibly difficult to break in because that's what people have first and foremost. So it was like, while it wasn't like I know what you mean when you pose a question about
Mhm.
negativity, but it was a huge like thing to receive, to basically be like no, and like not really ever until, I mean, unless you get like a stroke of luck and for whatever reason you get your shot. But yeah, it's just, I guess it's being like sensible and adaptive and not taking anything too personally, um unless something is said personally to you. But no, but even still, it's not really much point in taking anything personally, because what's it going to give you? What are you going to do with that information? Because you're the one who's going to have to take that away. And you're going to allow it to be like a burden, or you know what's that going to serve you? So I think, and I definitely did take things badly, or I think everyone does, but it's like trying to, once the kind of emotions have like calmed, it's sort of trying to reflect a little bit better on those moments, and go again.
Yeah. So like, I can't imagine it being a fear for yourself because, and for like, I say yourself, but like everybody, because it's not really a fear to put an application form in. But have you ever like had to face your fears before? And if you have, how did you deal with it? Like, how did you deal with it?
I remember my first day of when I had to do like a radio presenting like demo at university.
Mhm.
And I I remember I like walked to university, and I got halfway and I was like, no, I'm not doing this. I can't do this. And I walked back, I got like back to my flat and I was like, no, I can do this, I can do this. And I like ran back all the way to university. So it's like double the trip. And I like did it. And it just doing it was like, I came out, thinking I can do anything. And I remember then like years later, I did like an interview with them. Was he manager at the time? I think like Bristol City manager at the time, or maybe he was like ex-manager. And it was like my first big interview, non-live, it was like very something that, doing now I wouldn't think twice about, but at the time it was absolutely massive. And I was like, I'm just gonna give this to someone else. I can't do this. And I was like, no, again, the same thing like with the radio. I was like, I can do this. And I did it. And I remember like driving back, just being like, just thinking I can do anything, And it's always been that sort of moment of, I can't do this. How can I get out of this? Like, I'm just going to set this off, and then being like, oh, just do it, just get it done with. And every single time it's like, that was amazing. Yeah. Like what were you ever worried about? Which is obviously that, what it's always going to be like in hindsight, but
yeah,
it's never, I don't think, I mean, I haven't done like so many of those situations, but whenever I have, has invariably been a situation where it's like, that wasn't at all as bad as, it wasn't bad at all. Yeah. Wasn't what you were imagining. Because you sort of, create a narrative of what it's going to go like. And, I'm just going to do this interview and I'm going to say something and the guy's going to shout at me. And then the radio station's going to fire me, even though they haven't hired me. All these things like snowball,
Oh, I feel your pain. I feel your pain with me. So it's back to myself. The first ever person I interviewed, he actually works for Leicestershire City. I think that's what you call him. But he worked for Hamilton Accies Football Club, and it was Marcus Nash. He was the social media manager, head of social media, I should say, or head of communication or something like that. So when I got to speak to him for the first time, it was like a big guest to have, and that was intimidating. That was like, I don't know, it's the first time I ever had to speak to anybody out with. I think he works at Leicestershire City Football Club right now, or moved there or something like that, something along those lines. But see, when you're having to like, because I always feel like, I don't know, maybe it's just maybe it's the way I say it, but the response I get from, oh, you want to work in media, or how you going to make money, and how you going to do this, and how you going to do that, it is kind of like hate and negativity. But would you say like, and a lot of people say this, like to bring on to what I'm going to say, was that, like for example, for me, I just post obviously this on this, and then as everybody knows, Mr. Big Kyle, by the way, everybody, that on my main channel, that all I do is like post fitness stuff and lifting and all motivational and stuff like that. But a lot of people say you have to watch what you post on social media, because no matter what happens, it reflects on the job, it reflects on your person, it reflects, it's like you, as Elon Musk said, it's the metaverse of people. Whereas people who don't know what the metaverse is, it's like this averse you put. I'm not going to go into it because it's really confusing. But anyway, it's like you kind of have to watch what you post on social media for jobs. What's your opinion on that? Do you think you do have to, or do you think you kind of have to still be yourself to an extent, or what's your opinion on that one?
Yeah, I think it's only sensible to watch what you post, because you do represent the company that you work for. And yeah, and you just got to always think, when you post something, you might think that's going to a certain audience. You've got to remember that anyone and everyone can see that. So I think it's just always being mindful of people will associate you with the work that you do. So yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that. I think that doesn't mean not being yourself.
Mhm.
I just think it's a good question. I think maybe I'm wrong in maybe there is a right or wrong with this, but I think there is. I think you should be yourself, but there should be maybe a filter of what you publicly post. Because I think it's written in ink. What you post, it's going to stay on there.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, and with people being able to like screenshot what you say and things like that, or what you post. But what I was going along the lines with that, just to give it, I should really said this at the start, my bad, but to give it a little bit more context, is when I get to speak to employers, or I have friends that own bars and clubs, as people will know, because I do say quite a lot, they say, look, even the ones that say that are on a bar, they say, if you're constantly posting, in fact, great one is, my mate owns a bar like 20 minutes that way, well, this way from where I'm sitting. It makes sense if people knew where I was, but 20 minutes that way, he owns quite a relatively well-known bar in this part of Scotland. And he says, even if you're posting, now it's a bar, that even if you're posting pictures about you going out with your mates, drinking all the weekend, and that's all you talk about and stuff, I'm not hiring you, because like that's all you do. Like there's nothing. You're going to then come to a job environment where you could be drunk, you could be hungover, you could not turn up. So yeah, there is like a, coming from employers and people that are employees, do say the same thing, that you really kind of do need to like be yourself, but watch what you put, because it does kind of, well, it could have, it might not, like I could be completely wrong in saying that, excuse me, but it might. And if somebody is posting like got a really clean sheet, and then you have like quite a dirty one, but you both have the same qualifications and stuff, they might just take that guy just to be on the safe side, because you literally never know. But
yeah, it's something that I think everyone is still like learning about. I think, and people, employers as well as employees, will have different views on it. So some people will care, some people won't. Some people have, private accounts, some people don't. So it's like it's not as clear cut as that. I don't think as not as anything you said. I don't think it's as clear cut as one way or the other. But
yeah.
it's interesting for sure.
Yeah, it's always an interesting topic. But yeah, I do want to say, I really appreciate you coming on. Like, and the fact, again, how you gave me your time and stuff. Again, with, as I said to you before the podcast, the fact that you are busy, to me is, again, it's admirable how then you can take another hour of your day where you could have had a break, or went and were a walk or done something, but then you helped me. So thank you. And I'm sure the viewers will really appreciate your time. But do you have any?
No, you're very welcome.
Yeah, thank you very much. Do you have any social medias you want to shout out, or would you rather keep them private, or what's your social media?
No, I don't have anything I want to shout out. I post mainly pictures of my dogs when I go home. But I mean, yeah, feel free to give me a follow. I don't even know. I'm so bad on this kind of stuff. I don't even know what my handle is. What's my handle? Hold on. Because I do post some of the stuff that I work on, like the interviews that I work on.
Yeah.
You can give me a follow, Adam Jeremy 93.
Adam Jeremy.
But yeah, it's my middle name.
Oh, right. I was about to say, wait a minute. I've been saying your name wrong this whole time.
No. But yeah, so and that is yeah, and so I do post some of the shoots that I work on. So yeah, feel free.
Is that Twitter also, and Instagram you don't want as well? Sorry, what was that?
No, I said also, if you don't want to, I won't be offended. mainly Instagram.
Instagram, right? Okay, so what was that again? Adam Jeremy
93,
as we say 69 there, 93. Well, thank you very much for your time, and yeah, I hope everybody liked this. Again, like, comment, subscribe. As I say, you don't have to subscribe, you can just watch it and follow along and check every other episode out. But I will say, like I said at the start, the last episode we have on here, again, I'm not going to say his name because you guys should go and check it out, so I don't actually tell you who it is, but it does go deep into stuff, but it goes deep into mental health and what he's been through and that. And it's really, if you're, as I said to people that have asked me before, if you cry really easy, I necessarily wouldn't watch it because it's really, it is upsetting. And you can see when you watch the video, it does take me back and definitely humbles me big time because I was speechless. Anyway, thank you very much. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you all later. Thank you very much.